outskirts.
Good evening, DC. It's Nico back again. Saturday evening, the house to myself. What better things to do than to spinning some records and some great music. What you heard in the beginning is the wonderful Aunt Trip Ceremony and their only band from 1968. Sorry, their only album from 1968. A private release recorded by a college band from Ohio, pressed in 300 copies only, I think. But this is a Gerson reissue, a well-sounding, or as good as it's gonna sound, because the source material isn't that great, but it's an excellent garagey blues rock psych album by quite young musicians, and they decided to record this album because some of the members of the band were moving after college, and they wanted to capture the magic of the band before they split up and moved separate ways. So definitely something I recommend if you like that kind of a lo-fi, privately released psych from back in the day. Well, I've been buying quite a lot of records lately, and I have a pile here. I don't know if will be able to show everything, but I can at least show some of the highlights. Just the other day I bought 3 albums by the San Diego outfit, the Hot Snakes, and the recent reissues of their 3 studio albums. And what kind of music is this? Well, Hot Snakes were kind of a punk rock slash alternative rock. Rock and roll. I'll play you an example. I had these records back in the day, but for some reason during a purge I sold off my original Swami Recordings issues, but now they are re-released on Sub Pop, each in different candy colored vinyl, and let's just hear. This is an awesome punk rock band. Perhaps something for Vinyl Richie or even Ron at the Hog's Ear Report. Let's just hear some from the first album.
Gonna
Just an awesome punk rock band, rock and roll, full pump all the way through, with a magnificent John Rice on the lead guitar, from of course the Nightcrawlers. I really recommend the Hot Snakes. I also bought myself an original Italian copy of Peter Hamill's first solo album called Fool's Mate. Peter Hamill, of course, is the vocalist and composer songwriter for Van de Graaff Generator. This is also a cool piece. Actually, it's very much like Van de Graaff Generator, but released in Peter Hamill's name instead. So, if you're into Van de Graaff Generator, definitely check out Peter Hamill's early solo albums. Also got myself a Tapestry reissue of Saint Stephen's only album, Over the Hills, The Bastage. I don't know if it's self-titled. Yes, Saint Stephen. Been shown in the VC sometimes and recommended by the likes of, I think, Ron at the Hogs Air Report and others. It's a quite nice psychedelic album, I think. Nothing I would shell out big bucks for, but this nice Tapestry reissue will do, in hard cardboard, stout and tip type of cover. So, nice low-key psychedelia. Got my hands on a Amber Soundroom reissue of Fading Beauty and the debut album Faithful Breath. Sorry, the band is called Faithful Breath and the debut is Fading Beauty. Wonderful German progressive rock from the early 70s, 1973. I do recommend these guys. Perhaps the audio isn't the best, but it was released on a budget label back in the day. But this Amber Soundroom reissue is a faithful reproduction of actually the reissue from 1974, I think. Another cool German album is Da Capo, and their only album from 1971 or 72. This is a reissue with an alternate cover from Little Wing of Refugees label, which were active in the 90s, I think. And this is also a very obscure kraut rock piece. Even for this reissue, the original source material, the master tapes, had disappeared, so they had to use different original copies, the best they could find, to make this reissue. But you can always trust Little Wing of Refugee for making good reissues and picking out the bands worthwhile having. And of course, needless to say, it's quite impossible to find originals of Da Capo, which of course is the kind of experimental progressive psychedelia you would expect from Germany in the early 70s. Another quite special one is this album called Astral Navigations, which in fact is an exact repro of the album Astral Navigations, which was released in 1971, I believe, consisting of, this is a split release, two bands, let me check here. It comes as it was packaged originally with a wraparound poster, quite psychedelic, which you can take off, of course, and revealing the cover inside, which has another wraparound folder, and then just white cardboard. And inside, here's the record, with the original layout for the layout and design for labels, including a booklet with some info about the bands and lyrics. And actually there are two bands on this album. On side A, let me have a check here. Should have done my research. What the heck are the bands called? Never mind. Thunder Mother is on side 2, and on side 1 is... I don't understand why they hide such info. So well hidden. Who are these bands? Anyway, the band worthwhile is on side B, Thunder Mother, which were kind of heavy rock with a bit of doom to their edges. And by the way, this one is from 1971. The originals were only pressed in 300 copies, I think, and are super rare, of course, and expensive. So this exact repro is worthwhile getting. Astral Navigations, and to my ears, the second side, Thunder Mother, that's the one to go for. Heavy drums, heavy bass, heavy guitars. First side is more of a bonfire psychedelia. Well, I should have done my research and found both band names before shooting this video, but who cares? Another reissue from a wonderful British progressive band called simply Titus Drone. And this is a Rabbit Hole reissue. It was originally released on Dawn, I believe the same label as Coma's first utterance. Just competent British prog rock. It's kind of reminiscent to Ben, the progressive band on Vertigo's World, but with vocals. Well, let me check what to show. Found an original by a band called The Floating Opera. Not too familiar with it, heard a couple of tracks on YouTube which sounded alright, so I snagged this one for cheap on the Embryo label, a subdivision of Cotillion. So looking forward to spinning that. Also bought myself a reissue of Toad, the Swiss heavy progressive rock band, simply called Toad, their only album. It's a Nakama reissue, which seems to be the only reissue to be found. But even though if I'm not too keen on Nakama reissues, this one and all the other reissues from Nakama are of high quality, so what can you do? I also bought myself a couple of reissues by the Boss Town band Tangerine Sue, their first album, a reissue on the Mainstream label, and their second album, Outside Looking In, both from 1968, I believe, 67, 68, and this is marvelous Boss Town psychedelia, quite garagey, muddy sounding, and far out in some places. They do a cover of Gloria, which I skip every time I spin the record, but even that version is cool enough. But Gloria is a track which is, well, that's covered for sure. So, if you aren't familiar with the Tangerine Sue and like that kind of garagey, muddy psychedelia, do check these two out. And these reissues are readily available everywhere, I think, both online and out in the wild, so they are of high quality, so I really recommend those. What else in the pile? Aha! Of course, I got myself a couple of grails, which is to be expected from this channel, because I have many grails. This isn't a grail but an upgrade. I've shown this before. Birth Control's third album, Hoodoo Man, and I finally found a cheap copy of this album with the gatefold cover. I already have this album, but with a single sleeve. This isn't the original issue, but it has the gatefold cover and is in excellent shape, so why not? I guess you all know Birth Control, so I won't dwell too much on that one. Another original grail of mine, which I finally found for a nice price, Mythos, and the debut, self-titled debut from 1972. Just look at that wonderful cartoonish space artwork. And as you might know, if you have seen my other videos, I'm a nut, I'm a sucker for Macht das Ohr auf releases. So here's another one for my collection. And if you're not familiar with Mythos, they are kind of heavy space rock. This is a conceptual album about war and the future and the end of the earth. Some Eastern influences also on this one. Just an awesome album. And let me just flip the record. We have already listened to the first side of Hot Snake's debut album. So, if there's a commercial on this video, it's because I got a copyright claim again. Well, another grail. I found an excellent condition original by 30-åriga kriget, 30-year war, Swedish art/progressive rock band. Highly skilled musicians out there, progressiveness. This is just super cool album. So if you haven't heard 30-åriga kriget, go check them out. They are on Spotify and on YouTube, I guess. I really dig their first album, this one, and their second album called Krigssångar, eller Krigssång, War Song. But the rest of the discography is so-so. This is an original on the Epic label. So that was a lucky score, because these covers are very fragile and of course white, so often they are kind of sketchy condition. Well, a grail but not an original, an album I've been looking for a long time, and I finally found a 90s reissue of the South African band Freedom's Children, and I believe this is their second or third album from 1970 called Astra. And you don't hear much about South African rock scene from the 60s and 70s. You of course have the band Suck and their album Time to Suck, which everyone knows. But this consists of only original material, as opposed to Time to Suck, which was only covers. Well, Freedom's Children, they released 3 albums, and this is by far their best. And it's kind of spacey, proto-progressive psychedelia, heavy on the heavy on the phasing and on the Hammond organ and fuzz guitars. I will needle drop this one for you. So it's bye-bye to Hot Snakes and hello to Freedom's Children. Let me just find the cover here. Well, how's everyone doing? It's in the middle of the winter. I'm certainly waiting for spring. It's not too cold here these days. We had a very cold period last week, but this week it's been around 0 degrees Celsius, so I'm pleased. But I'm waiting for spring, which I guess many of you do as well. Well, enough blabbering. Here's Freedom's Children and their album Astra. There. Let's drop the needle somewhere else. That's the recommendation from me for this video. Absolutely go track down a copy of Freedom's Children's Astra. I guess you have to settle for a reissue because the originals are rare as hen's teeth and crazy expensive. I know Shadows have reissued these records both in a box set but also as individual releases. This is a breeder backtrack reissue from the 90s. So they are to be found for normal prices. So that's it for this video. Quite unorganized, but there you go. You have seen some covers, heard some music, and well, it's time for more beer and more records, and I'll leave you to what you were doing. Have a nice evening, everyone. Thanks for watching. Bye.